A hip hop club that doesn't allow foreigners. What is this called?
That's my point.
Wait.
It's a hip hop club,
In
but you
Itaewon.
don't. In Little America, basically. Nelson! You didn't know I watched your TikTok, didn't you?
I didn't know.
Yeah, I see you on Reels so much. Like, your content just pops on my, like, For You page a lot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I like how...
sorry.
Oh my God. No, please, don't be... My favorite one so far has been that man who was taking pictures of you and your family.
Oh, yeah. That happened recently, actually. I was in Jeju, and yeah, this guy was just... we just wanted a photo,
Yeah.
but he was posing us. We had a whole photo shoot. Took us about like 20 minutes, and he had us do all these like
Yeah.
Korean poses.
Yeah.
It was great.
And then the pictures after, and I was like, It's like, ajushi, okay. Okay. But would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Nelson.
Yeah.
I actually work as a product manager for a language learning app called
Yeah.
Tuida. That's my main thing. I started making content on the site about a year ago.
Oh, okay. Wow, you're doing really well for somebody who just started.
Yeah, I got lucky.
Yeah.
I still don't understand why people
Follow you. You're just like entertaining, but like it's like different because it's stuff that you wouldn't think to tell people that you tell people. You know what I mean? It's that type of content. And I think people will probably tell you why they follow you, but I think that's maybe why your content is a bit more different than other YouTubers, I would say.
because I talk about things that people might not think about talking about.
Yeah, when it comes to like regular Korea content creators, I feel like your content is a little different. Especially also because you're Korean. You understand Korean more. Korea more,
yeah.
sorry, not Korea.
Yeah.
Korea more. But obviously your English is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
You know?
Appreciate it.
But I just said you're Korean. What's your background?
So I was actually born and raised in Brazil.
What's up with all these Brazilian Koreans?
I know. I
What's
saw a couple of Brazilians in the podcast, and I was like, "Oh, that's so cool!" Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. You had a girl about 2 weeks ago, I think.
Yes.
Break Core.
Yeah, Helen.
Helen. Yeah. I've
Helen.
actually met up with her once. So I think it's similar backgrounds. Not maybe as similar, but I was born and raised in Brazil. Went to the U.S. for school, and then came back to Korea about 6 years ago.
6 years ago. And what made you come back to Korea?
So when I was living in the States, I had graduated. I found a job there as a video editor.
Oh,
and
okay.
I had my community there. I was pretty set living in the States. I saw my future in the States. But then my dad has a condition called Parkinson's.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I think his health was deteriorating. So I thought about it a lot. I prayed about it, and I just felt like God was calling me to Korea and to spend time with family, because everything else I think I could, rebuild.
Right,
but
right.
time with family is like,
You can't rebuild that.
that's
yeah.
part of the reason. But I think it was meant to be. Like God just wanted me in Korea.
Yeah. And how do you feel about being in Korea for the last 6 years?
Overall, it's been great. I love it because when I was in the States and I felt like I should come back to Korea, I had to come back to Korea. I actually didn't want to. I had all these like stereotypes about Korean culture, and I don't want to come back, right? So my exposure to Korean culture was through like Korean immigrant churches, and sometimes I don't know if you've heard anything about Korean immigrant churches, but
Heard a lot.
they can be sometimes more Korean than Korea itself in a negative way, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh man, Korean culture, and then parts of my ideas of Korean culture was also formed in the military. So I took 2 years off from college to come and serve in the military.
Okay.
So, as you can imagine, my ideas I had a lot of negative, prejudice, I guess, against Korean culture. So I wasn't looking forward to it. But after I came here, I saw a lot of unexpected good in Korean society. I could see a lot of pros that came with the cons. So right now, I'm really happy. I'm glad I came.
That's really good. What's some, minus like the toxic mindset of certain Korean churches that you've seen, which we'll end up talking about that a little later, but what are some other negatives that you had, like negative thoughts that you had about Korea that you then came and saw, oh, it's not really like that?
It's not so much. It's not really like that. It was like that, but I think there's a lot of good that came with it too, right? Like I think there's no like good and bad culture.
Right.
Each culture has a characteristic, and that characteristic has good in it, but also the downside, right?
Right, right.
And so things that I guess just off the top of my head, like the cliquiness of Korean cultures,
The
right?
kiri-kiri?
Yeah, kiri-kiri and like that was like a thing that I didn't like.
Wait, I have a question. So when you were in the States, when you were going to school, right? I went to a school that had a lot of Korean students, international and just like Korean Americans.
Yeah.
But they always stuck with each other.
Yeah.
Like it was almost impossible to see Korean international students with non-Koreans.
Yep,
right?
yep.
How did you have that experience, or did you try to like leave the group?
Yeah, so this is a little complicated because my identity, I think I'm neither this or that. I'm like,
Because you have Brazilian in you too.
yeah, I'm a very weird. I don't know if you're familiar with the term like TCK, third culture kid.
Oh, TCK.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's basically when you don't belong in any groups, so you're an outsider wherever you go. And that's been kind of the story of my life. Like I didn't belong anywhere I went.
Yeah. That's so sad.
But even in the Korean culture, I hung out mostly with Asian Americans. But there was some overlap with Korean internationals as well, right? But to go back to your question, I had a similar experience. Like I think Korean internationals tend to stick to themselves, right?
Yeah.
And going back to our topic of like the pros and cons, I think foreigners see that and like, oh, they're so cliquey. Korean internationals, man, like why won't they have any foreign friends that came to the States? And I could see that and I empathize with that as well. But from the Korean internationals perspective, I think there's a lot of I think it makes sense as well. There's a lot of like historical and like cultural like identity in there as well, but also like they are having a hard time, right? They're
That's
not
true.
like a lot of them are not really fluent in English, and they just want to survive. So I think part of that is that as well. Yeah.
There's this other thing where they stick together and then they complain that they're not learning English.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, if you're sticking with the Koreans and only speak Koreans, you're not going to learn, English. And it's the same with foreigners who come to Korea. If you're only hanging out with foreigners, you're not going to learn Korean because you're not, trying to even interact with Koreans.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's a comfort thing for sure.
I think so. Yeah. I think so.
Like nobody likes being uncomfortable, but if you want to learn a language, you have to be uncomfortable,
With that said, I think there is a slight difference where I think foreigners do want to make Korean friends. I think Korean internationals in the States or other countries tend to just stick to themselves out of choice a lot of the times.
They do look like that comfort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nuances though. Not everyone's like that, right? So
True, very true.
I think that goes without,
It's like definitely person to person.
Yeah.
I think, but
generally speaking.
have you been to Brazil since you left?
I have a couple times, yeah. I've been back after the military service. I stopped by Brazil for a bit, and then I traveled there once.
May I ask why you chose to go to the military, even if you were born and raised in Brazil?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. So I had a year left before graduating college, and I had to go to the real world outside, and I felt like I wasn't very ready for it. I think, objectively speaking, I grew up very sheltered. I was a bit spoiled, and I wanted, to grow up. And I had that option of going to the Korean military, so I was like, oh, that could be a good break.
Yeah. If you can talk about it. How was your experience in the military?
It was good. I really enjoyed it. I'm careful about how to describe it, but this is a hot take, but I think if military service wasn't mandatory, I think a lot of people would actually enjoy it.
You think?
Yeah.
So?
I think a lot of Koreans would actually enjoy it. You know, like whatever experience or whatever thing you have to like. I think whatever experience you have in life, when it's mandatory and you feel like you're forced to do it, you can't enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
And so I always give this example of like, if I'm playing computer games, right? And then I tell myself, oh, I'm gonna stop in 30 minutes. This is my last game. But then my mom comes in and says, Nelson, you gotta stop playing 30 minutes. All of a sudden, you don't wanna stop.
Yeah.
I think that's similar to Korean military service. I think it's a great experience. It's a 2-year like gap year to really suffer, but also it's a unique experience you don't get anywhere else. Like you can't even pay to do that kind of experience. You get in a group of like brothers who are like stuck with you for 24/7. You gotta learn not only social skills, but you have to reflect a lot. You have a lot of time in your hands to like reflect about life.
Yeah.
Do a lot of self-development and learn to adjust to other people.
That's true.
And I learned some really invaluable lessons in the military. So all in all, it was good, but a lot of a lot of suffering as well, for sure.
Would you ever do it again?
Man, the typical answer for that is the typical question for that for Korean men is like, if he gave you like $10 million, would you do it? And the typical answer is, even if I had to break a leg, like even if I have to give up a leg, I wouldn't do it, kind of thing.
Wow, yeah.
But I think I would do it. I think I would do it.
Really?
Yeah. I think it made me into who I am, and I found that time very, very, very edifying.
Wow,
Yeah.
you
Time
grew.
Yeah. Time almost like slows down when you go in the military. I don't know if you're into anime. Do you know Dragon Ball?
Of course I know.
Oh, okay.
I'm a 90s kid.
Let's go.
90s child. Yeah, of course I do. Yeah.
So I don't know if you remember, but in Dragon Ball, there's this like a space. I think it's called like Chamber of Space and Time, whatever. Goku goes in there to like train, but time goes in there. Time goes by in there slower than outside.
Yeah.
So they spend like 20 years, like training, but then when they come out, only like 2 days has passed.
Yeah.
That was kind of like my experience in the military. You go there, it's a totally different world, different rules you play by, different lifestyle, and you live a whole life cycle there, right? You started out as like a Ibyong, as a Pyeongchang. You go through like a whole cycle where you're like, bottom low, and then you go through like this like I'm like almost like a king.
Yeah.
And a lot of things, a lot of things you experience in that cycle. But when you come out, all your friends are like still
they're still there for you.
Yeah, they're still the same, and like it almost feels like nothing has changed when you're like a different person. So it was a very, very fun experience for me. It was almost like I got to live 2 lives.
That's so interesting because most Korean men that I've asked about the military are just like, no.
Yeah.
It's like,
And I could understand that too.
Yeah. I guess it's
weird
just
things
very.
happen there.
No, I've heard some stories, and I'm like, thank God, I am not a Korean man, and I don't have to serve. But it's very interesting that you still chose to serve. But I understand why you chose to serve because it does seem like you grew a lot from that experience.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think by serving, I got the Korean citizenship as well, right? I got to keep my Korean citizenship.
Right,
yeah.
right.
And so I think the law keeps changing. So whenever people ask me about like dual citizenship, I don't know like what the current law is. But I think at the time I could have chosen not to serve.
Right.
Yeah, so.
But you still chose to. Look at that, Korea. You gained a soldier. Some people are running away. Some people are coming through. How cute. By the way, you were in the Korean Marines?
I was, yeah.
That's so interesting that you didn't even mention that. Isn't
right.
that like, I feel like that's such a big thing in Korea to be in the Korean Marines.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. I tend to keep it quiet because
And I'm being so
a lot
loud.
of things come with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they have a tighter. It's like, so for those of you who don't know, like Korean Marines is like a smaller branch of the military. There's like Army, which is like the biggest, and then there's like Navy and Air Force.
Yeah.
But Marines is a subdivision of the Navy. That's like that you have to actually test to get into.
Right.
Other ones you kind of like go into, and so there are certain like stereotypes stereotypes and I almost want to say like baggages that come with being associated with the Marines.
Yeah.
I think historically it's been like, oh, Marine, like they have a lot of pride and
prideful, masculine,
which
like all that.
and they have a certain kind of a bond, like even now, right? If I go in a cab and they have like a 해병대, like Marine stickers on, like
해병대.
they'll like like treat you. They've even given me free rides in the past.
Oh, wow.
Or like even if in outside, right?
Yeah.
If you see someone wearing their like Marines uniform, they're out on a leave. Sometimes the 선임s, like the people who've gone through, they'll like call them out and give them like 용돈 or buy like snacks. So there's a certain kind of a camaraderie that comes with it. But there's also some not so good camaraderie. Like they'll just like they'll treat you like you're still their huin, right? Which is like a double-edged sword, but. Yeah.
They're treating you like you're still in it.
Yeah. So in the Marines, they have this idea of cohorts. They call it kisu, and every month, like the numbers go up, and that is like they have a saying in the Marines that the difference between one kisu, like 1 month apart, is like sky and ground.
The ground.
It's like and so we had all these like weird things. You have to like. When I think about it now, it's like kind of stupid. But at the time,
when you're in it,
you live by different laws. So, for example, we'd be at like a 생활반, we're just chilling, and we're like watching TV, right? Watching TV like this. And no, because they have all these like.
You can't even be like.
You can't even. I think until the first 3 months, you can't even watch TV. You just have to like sit. You can't even lie down during the day. Anyways, you're watching TV, right?
Wow.
And like if a 연예인, if a celebrity who has gone through Marines comes out, you have to like stand up and like salute the TV.
What? How do you even know they went to the?
Oh, well, you have to know. You just know, and a lot of things like that. It's very funny. In a way, it's like very funny.
Yeah.
But at the time it was stressful, but looking back, I was like, oh, so many funny things people did there. Like, a lot of like hazing things that like.
I bet.
Yeah.
I sometimes see like old Korean men in the subway with their Marines hat on, and I'm always like, Marines. I don't know. I think it's just Marines in general, probably.
Yeah.
Not only Korean Marines. They're very prideful because from what I've heard, their training is very rigorous. Like, as you said, it's a small group, so you get very close to each other.
Yeah.
But I always see those old men, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
So you still have that hat? Look at you, Marines. But is there anything else about your military life that you would like to share?
I don't know how much time we have. I could spend a whole day talking about it, but I think it was good. It was good. It was a very unique experience. Something I would never be able to experience, even if I could pay for it. Like people don't get an opportunity like that. So it was good.
First time I'm hearing somebody say that many positives about the military. You consider yourself Kyopo, right?
Yes. Dongpo to be exact, but Kyopo for sure, yeah. Because Kyopo, I think I looked this up. I went to a workshop last month, and they talked about how Kyopo, like technically speaking, is someone who lives abroad.
Oh.
Dongpo is a more of a inclusive term for people with Korean ethnicity. But I'm good with Kyopo. I think people understand Kyopo better. So.
I'm just learning what Dongpo?
Yeah. No one uses that term though, so I think Kyopo is cool.
Dongpo sounds like poo-po. Why is dong?
Dongpo. Yeah.
But what has been the hardest adjustment for you as a Kyopo/Dongpo in Korea right now? Like when you came back?
Oh man. I think Kyopos have. Okay, this is I want your thoughts on this as well. But do you think Kyopos have a harder time in Korea, or like do foreigners, like non-Korean foreigners, have a harder time in Korea? Because I think there are pros and cons of being Kyopo, right?
Yeah. That's a hot take.
But I almost think it's harder to be a Kyopo in Korea than being a foreigner, because Koreans have this double standard. Like on one hand, you're not fully Korean. You're
That's
like.
True.
You're like, you're not real Korean, right?
You don't.
But on
really
the other hand, you have the standard. Like people have those standards for you because you look Korean, right? And you are Korean. You know what I mean? And so
it's an awkward.
Yeah, it's an awkward middle where like you end up getting the worst of both worlds. Sometimes you get the best of both worlds, but often you get the worst. So expectations of you having to be Korean,
Right.
but at the end of the day, still not fully fitting in.
That's
I think
true.
that's like the worst part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you come from different cultures too. Like you're not only Korean. You've lived in the States. You were born in Brazil. So
Yeah.
it's like you are Korean, but you're not 100% culturally, at least.
Yeah.
I think that was a question, Nelson. But I think foreigners, non-Korean foreigners still have a hard time because the sense of community for us will never be there. Like for you, at least you have your family, right? At least
true.
other Koreans, you can still look Korean.
Yeah.
But I think as foreigners, we get those times where it's like we feel alone a lot because community is never gonna be the Korean community for us.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But I think honestly, it does depend on who you ask, though.
For sure, yeah.
Like some foreigners have a great time in Korea, never lonely, communities there, and then some gyopos you meet, they hate Korea because they don't feel like they fit in. So I think it depends who you ask, but I've had a time. It's been 7 years. Okay. Even Nelson's body's agreeing with me. That's why he's coughing. But I've had a time. But I think it does depend. It's a very hot take.
For sure.
But what was the hardest adjustment? Was it like fitting into like the Korean culture, or was it fitting in to the? I don't even know where you fit in. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know where I fit in either.
Wow. How did you adjust then?
Still adjusting.
6 years later, he's still adjusting.
I think it's perpetual foreigner. I feel like wherever I go, and I've come to just embrace it. I think growing up, so a little bit about my background or my childhood, because I grew up as a Korean Brazilian. I had my teens was just like identity crisis everywhere I went, right? So I went to an international school for high school. I went to a Brazilian school for middle school and then an international school for high school. And in the high school, we had like 3 distinctive cliques, right? There was like the filthy rich Brazilian native kids who could afford to go to international school in Brazil. There were like the Korean internationals whose, parents worked in Samsung, LG, and their companies pay. And then there were some like international, like we call them gringos, all the kids of diplomats from all over the world.
Yeah.
And they didn't really get along with each other, right? They were like 3 separate distinctive cliques.
Okay.
And where did I fit in? Like I didn't fit in anywhere, right? So because I wasn't fully Brazilian, but I spoke Portuguese, I could get along with them. I was definitely Korean, but Korean culture was very like not
a bit foreign.
Yeah, they were just hanging out with themselves. And then I could speak English, I was learning English, but gringos wasn't, they were the most multicultural, right? So I felt most comfortable with them, but I didn't fit in anywhere, right? So I was like, I felt like that bat in the, do you know that story about King of the Jungle? Lion and the mammals had a fight with the eagle and the birds, and then the bat is kind of in between.
Because it's both.
Yeah. Oh, it's a mammal, but it can't fly.
It can
right?
fly. It's a bird, sort of.
Yeah. And so I felt like the bat, and I had a hard time all throughout high school. But then at the last year of high school, all the seniors kind of got together as seniors, and I think I got to play a role in like bridging those gaps because I didn't belong anywhere, and I think that's my first experience of realizing not belonging anywhere could serve as by not belonging anywhere I could serve as a bridge between cultures. So I kind of took that upon myself as like a mission or like as my identity, like as a bridge. So coming to Korea, going back to your question, sorry, that was like a very roundabout way of saying what was the hardest thing. I'm still embracing. I think that's the biggest thing. Hardest thing, maybe. I think relationships in general are the hardest thing. Like even like dating, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
First of all, I thought you were married.
No, I'm not.
Oh, whose kid is in your profile?
It's my niece.
Oh, okay. I thought you were married with a child. Okay. Yeah.
I think cultural differences in dating, I think was like
so you also I'm guessing you date both foreigners and Koreans. I'm guessing you don't.
I actually only dated once, and it was a Korean girl. Well, she had some experience. She was like a yuhakpa.
You've dated one person
Yeah,
previously,
yeah. And there were cultural differences. Even though she was, Korean and with international experiences.
A bit Western, yeah.
Yeah, I think I was more kyopo than her. And there were,
Okay.
yeah, a lot of misunderstandings.
So you have that problem in dating right now where you feel like sometimes you're too westernized or too foreign and not Korean enough.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't dated like right now, so I don't. But when I go on dates, I guess, yeah, I think I not finding someone who has both of that, it like really narrows down the pool, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that becomes a culture clash for sure.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, and what about friendships?
Yeah, friendships as well. People ask me like, "Oh, how do you make friends in Korea?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I don't have Korean friends." Yeah, I have some like, yeah.
I don't even have Korean friends.
Yeah. So when you say, "Oh, like, oh, foreigners have a hard time because they never like belong," I'm like, yeah, what are you talking about? What do you think I have friends here?
Nelson is like, I don't belong either.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I have some like, so my Korean friends are basically coworkers, like ex-coworkers or coworkers.
Yeah.
And then I have friends from the military.
oh, that's nice.
And then I don't think I have Korean friends. I go to like a multi-ethnic church, like an English-speaking church. So I have like Korean American friends or like foreigner friends, but Korean friends, maybe. I can't think of anyone. I hope I'm not offending any of my friends, but I don't think
Your one Korean
Like
friend is watching and
Korean
he's like,
friends are, yeah.
so I'm not your friends.
Oh.
Sorry. But I guess
I do
Korean
have-
friends are
sure,
hard
yeah.
to like make for all of us. When
Yeah.
you're not Korean, because Nelson is also a third culture kid.
Yeah.
So I said also like I'm a third culture kid. I'm not. I only have two cultures. But anyways, so that's interesting. That must be really hard for you because Koreans, when they look at you, they perceive you as
Yes.
Korean,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then I'm guessing when they talk to you a bit more, they learn about like, oh, you haven't lived here your whole life.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, he's Gyopo.
Yeah.
And then they learn that, oh, no, he was born in Brazil.
Yeah.
So it's like all these connections that you have.
Yeah.
How do you feel like Koreans perceive you as a third culture child?
I think there's a spectrum, and I think it really varies from person to person. But generally speaking, and I empathize with them, I think they're right. The general view of Koreans towards like Kyopos is like, oh, they grew up like very privileged, sheltered, they don't know better, they don't know our sufferings kind of thing. I think there's a sense of that.
Yeah.
I think it's changing a lot with younger generation, but I think there was a big, like a general like sense of these people are not fully us kind of thing. Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah.
And so I'm almost like a foreigner who can't use our foreigner card.
That's true because you don't look foreign.
Yeah. So we were held to a higher expectation,
Yeah, that's
but
true.
in terms of belonging, we still don't fully belong, right? So yeah.
But as you said previously, you've started embracing that where you're.
Yeah, I think so.
bother you,
Yeah,
right?
I think I go back and forth. I'm like, why do I have to be this? But I think sometimes I get the best of both worlds too, right? I get to because I think going back to do foreigners have it better or Korean Americans have? I think Korean Americans at least have the possibility of fully integrating if they really try.
That's true, yeah.
Because the looks is not going to get in the way.
That's true.
So I think that there is that possibility, and I think we do have it a little easier if we do want to like fit in. At least the looks is not going to be the first barrier, right? So, in that way, I got to experience a lot of the Korean culture as well.
Yeah, and then I'm pretty sure it's also easy for you to connect with foreigners here, obviously.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Let's move on to misunderstandings that you hear foreigners say about Korea. What are some misunderstandings you hear from foreigners about Koreans?
Okay, I don't know if it's misunderstanding. I think it is like partial understanding. I think those are more dangerous because there's truth to them. But I think if I could, I don't know, be like a spokesperson for the Korean,
For the Korean.
and ask, it's like understanding the cultural context or the historical context behind why they act that way, I think will make people a lot more open, or not more open, will make people a lot more empathetic to
Yeah.
these qualities or these actions that Koreans take. And I'm not trying to justify. I think, a wrong is a wrong, like, right?
course.
Doesn't matter what historical background they had, but at least I think it'll put you in a better position to befriend them rather than to antagonize them. And some of them are like straight up wrong. I think, oh man, like Koreans are X, Y, and Z, and it's like, dude, that's true. Like
Yeah.
I think they should fix that, right?
Yeah.
Or we should fix that. But there are some things that are just like cultural differences, and I think a lot of times foreigners should learn to understand that it's not wrong.
It's
And
just culture.
yeah, so oftentimes I think foreigners take their culture as the basis and say, "Oh, Koreans are like so wrong, right?" But sometimes it's just differences, and we're in Korea, we have to adjust, right?
Right, right.
Other times, I think there are things that are like, "Oh, this is wrong," no matter which culture it is. And I think in that context, understanding the history behind it, I think helps a lot.
That has to be like awkward for you where
Yeah.
you'd have to explain this to like foreigners or your foreign friends.
I think I often get hated by both sides
Dang.
in the context, in the process of bridging. But I think that's the role of a bridge, right? To be stepped on
Yeah.
while you.
Not
while you
stepped
bridge.
on. Oh
Yeah.
no. Yeah.
So to be more specific, like let's talk about like I don't know. I think there are like many things, right? I think one of the things that I personally had negative feelings about was like the materialism and like this standards, materialism, and like too much focus on like external beauty.
Yeah.
But the way I learned to not be okay with it, but understand, like, be more understanding, like, empathize with them is,
Yeah.
I think Korea is kind of like like Young Money, right? They've had, it's been very, like, relatively very recent since they went from being like super broke to like being
a developed nation
developed
now.
country, right?
Yeah.
And so, if you think of Korea as like a friend, it's that friend who like didn't have anything. They worked really hard and they have a lot of money. Like, let them have their time for a bit, like.
Let them use their money.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like they don't understand. Like, I don't know. So I like in real life, right? I had friends who are like been rich for generations. They have like generational wealth, and I've had friends who are like more like self-made kind of thing, right?
Right.
And you see characteristics in them, and like I don't blame them for having those characteristics. It makes sense, And Korea had to work really hard for it, and they've had a rough history,
That's true.
So from that context, I'm like, okay,
It makes
like
sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
you do you, like, and I really believe that like after a while they'll evolve. They're evolving and they're changing too, right? And so like I became less judgmental of it. I think.
Because I do think the whole Korea being like the beauty standards is something that's very talked about because the beauty standards in Korea are very high. But I guess it does make sense. Like Korea is developing every day. And then on top of that, it's not my face, it's their face. So why does it really matter?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
With that said, oh man, so I see both sides of everything, right? But with that said, I think we have to call wrong for like those unhealthy beauty standards that like, I think it's doing more harm for them. I think it's a loving thing to do to call them out for their own sake too, right?
Yeah.
Like when girls are like starving themselves to fit like unrealistic beauty standards or
Yeah.
like not seeing how beautiful they are because the standards say like only the plastic surgery beauty is real beauty, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's not doing good.
Yeah.
So
There's some toxicity for sure.
yeah. So
It's just awkward like as a foreigner to call it out.
Yeah.
So,
I think
like,
it gets tricky, right?
It's so awkward.
Yeah.
It's so awkward for me to say Korean beauty
Yeah.
standards are toxic because some of them are based on the culture, right? Like certain things in the culture that have happened that now people feel like this is the way they want to move. But you can look at it and be like, nah, that's toxic. Like, why are you giving your middle school daughter eyelid surgery as a birthday present? That to me is toxic.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, you're beautiful the way you are, as a parent, that's what you should do. But being like, oh, yeah, I see it. Here's some money, go fix it.
Yeah.
Toxic. But being a foreigner, it's like awkward to say.
You know, I think what makes it more awkward.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've thought about this, but where do these like double eyelid surgery, like where do those beauty standards come from? I feel like it comes from the West as well. You know what I
It's
mean?
literally from the West.
I think so. I think a part of it has to. Yeah, I don't know if
Yeah.
Koreans would agree with this, but
Yeah.
And so it's like. It's like we or like the same perpetrators are like, oh, why are you doing this? It's like, oh, I guess you're
You guys made
you're
it the
Hollywood.
standard.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, like
know.
Hollywood makes it the standard, and then people in other countries want to follow that standard.
Yeah.
And then us from the Western world come, and then we're like, but why are you following this?
Yeah.
It's just a cycle of just like
Yeah.
never ending what? It's just that. But yeah, it's very awkward for, especially even for me. I feel sometimes it's awkward for me to call it out because in some aspects I fit the beauty standards in Korea.
Yeah.
Minus the skin tone, because it's gonna take a while. But everything else is gonna take a while. Listen, that's a beauty standard that I will never fit, and it's okay. But I feel like because I fit in it in certain ways, I feel like it's hard to call it out because people are gonna be like, well, obviously you don't see a problem with it because you freaking fit in it. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, yeah, but it doesn't take a smart person to see certain things are very toxic.
Yeah.
For sure. Like, it's clear.
Yeah.
But
Man, I think you bring
Yeah.
up a really good point because I think a lot of the times, not beauty wise, but a lot of the times the things I criticize, I come from a place of privilege too, right?
that's true. Yeah.
Like one of the things I was like, oh, why are Koreans so obsessed with like speaking English so well? Like, and they think, speaking English is almost like a social like status.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, like, but then I'm like, oh, I can speak English, so
You
I
already
don't make a
have
good
it.
deal of it, but
Yeah.
a big deal out of it. But
Yeah.
I see how like like work wise, how much that plays a role, and yeah, so I gotta be careful before judging.
You have to see what privilege
See
you
my
have.
own the plank on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I also had that. Like when I had first come to Korea, because I was very like, wow, Korea is amazing, da, 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 like all these rose-colored glasses. I used to have Korean friends tell me they want to live in America, and I'm like, why do you want to live in America? Like, what's so great about America? But as an American, you don't see it. But others really do want to go to America because they see it as, the land of the free, opportunity and stuff. Because I was always like, I don't think you should go to America, just stay in Korea. And they would be like, I don't want to live in Korea. But then I had to realize I have the privilege of already being American. So
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
I can't be telling you not to go to America because you've never experienced it. You
Yeah.
should go, It's awkward.
Yeah, yeah. I think a part of the grass is greener on the other side applies here. I think from a foreigner's perspective, from the Korean perspective, is like you've never had to go through the Korean education. You don't know how stressful and how competitive the society is.
Yeah.
So you say Korean's awesome because you came here with that out of the way.
Yeah,
You just have to go clubbing in Hongdae.
Yeah,
But
have fun.
if you had to grow up here,
Yeah.
that could have been some other story. So
Yeah, the longer I live in Korea, the happier I am I'm not Korean. Like, I see certain things that my Korean friends have to overcome as Koreans, especially as Koreans. And I'm like, you know what? I'm okay with being the foreigner I am in Korea. Because I have
that's good.
a lot of privileges, even as, obviously we do have a lot of hardships too. But there are certain things that I'm like, Koreans face that they can't just leave or avoid it. They have to live it. So, yeah, God did that. He was like, you can't be Korean. I was like, yes, God. Because it's difficult here for everyone, for sure.
sure.
No matter who you are. But the older I get, the more I do see like why my friends want to leave Korea too.
Yeah.
But what about clubbing culture? What have you heard about clubbing culture?
So I haven't gone clubbing in more than 10 years. I was pretty old. I don't think we talked about age, but
We can talk about it and I'll take it out of the video.
oh, we don't have to talk. Oh, we don't have to take it out. I'm 35.
Oh, you grown.
Yeah, so I haven't clubbed in more than 10 years, but clubbing culture. I don't know.
Like, how do you feel about how certain clubs don't let certain like ethnicities or people into their establishment?
Okay, is that still a thing? Because if in 2025 we still have clubs that don't allow people based on their skin color, I feel like there's gotta be. Okay, I think we have enough Koreans on our side to be like, that's
It's crazy.
yeah, outrageous.
Crazy.
Is that still a thing? Though?
Last year, I had gone to Itaewon, and there is a certain club I tried to go in with my friend. It's a hip hop club, and they said they do not allow foreigners in there. Like, you have to be Korean.
A hip hop club that doesn't allow foreigners. What is this called?
That's my point.
Wait.
It's a hip hop club,
In
but you
Itaewon.
don't. In Little America, basically. Like, think about Itaewon as Little America if you don't know what Itaewon is. All foreigners go to Itaewon, but it's a club that plays hip hop that does not allow foreigners.
This is the equivalent of like going to a Korean town in LA, having a K-pop club that doesn't allow Koreans. You
No
know what I mean?
Koreans.
Like, what's going on?
Like, why? I couldn't even ask the question because even my friend who is Korean was like, why? And he was like, we just don't allow foreigners.
Is that legally like okay?
Yeah, in Korea.
It is.
Yeah, it's like hate crimes, like racial crimes are it's not illegal in Korea.
What? That makes no sense to
Yeah,
me.
in America, I don't even
Nah,
know
I
if
don't
it's
believe
illegal
that.
in America, to be honest.
No,
Like hate
that's
crime
gotta
is
be
illegal,
yeah.
but like racial crimes happen all the time and they're not persecuted. You know what I mean?
I
Like
mean, but
racism is
on
not
law,
illegal.
like that, that's gotta be illegal, right?
I don't. I'm gonna Google this before.
You really gotta.
I'll tell you guys what I find on Google,
Let's
but I
stop
don't
this podcast
think.
right now.
Can you
Go to that club and just.
So about this, but it happens so frequently, it can't. I don't think there's any law that protects foreigners against that. Because you go to Daegu and like maybe 2 years ago, there were some black women who were kicked out of a club in Daegu because they were black. Another hip hop club, funny enough. And it's like, we're in the 2020s now. Like, what are we doing? It's just weird. Yeah.
Yeah, that breaks my heart.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
That's because you look different.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have heard that part of the reason why some of these clubs do that is because foreigners are known to fight in clubs. But my thing is, don't Koreans fight too? Like, why are we acting like it's only foreigners scrapping in the club? Like,
Okay. Yeah. I know. I'm totally with you. And I think I'm trying to understand from their perspective.
Of course, yeah.
There's got to be like they're not like
has to be a good
100%
reason.
like stupid, right? There's got to be like some good reason.
Yeah.
I could see a good case to be made
Mm-hmm.
if they were to say a lot of people from the military, U.S. military, has had a history of causing like conflict or like even like cases of I don't know sexual harassment. But they're protected by like U.S. They'll just run back to their base, right?
That's true.
I think in that case, if I'm a club owner, I could be like, you know what? Like, I don't want those like military people here or like something like that. And there's a certain amount of like, what do you call it? Like outgroup homogeneity bias playing.
oh, okay.
Which is like just a fancy word for like, you think your people are diverse, but the outgroup is like the same, right?
Oh, okay.
So one example is like, if I say, oh, Koreans like love kimchi, Koreans be like, no way, we're so different. Like my mom doesn't eat kimchi, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But then the moment we say like, oh, I don't know, black people sometimes say, oh yeah, black people, you know. So
Yeah.
and foreigners do the same thing too, right? Like, oh, Koreans are so like, I don't know, competitive because it's like outgroup, so it's easier to like just
That makes
yeah.
sense,
But then when it
yeah.
comes to oh, Americans love like I don't know burgers. Like no, what do you mean Americans
Not
love burgers?
all of
That's
us.
such a yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think we tend that there's a certain amount of that playing in the club thing, right? Oh, foreigners must be all this way when there's so
Right.
much diversity,
So
you know,
much
amongst
diversity.
foreigners.
So
And with that said, yeah, foreigners. I think that gives foreigners more reason to like not cause like mess because when you do something wrong, I think it like Koreans will see that as like oh they're like
all
you're-
foreigners are
yeah
doing it.
yeah
Yeah.
yeah, and so like people like what was that guy who was like causing? He was just sentenced to jail just now. Like he was. causing a
Oh,
lot-
Somali.
yeah.
Somali or
When I see
something?
people like man, you're ruining for everyone. Like please, like get out of here. Like you know that one example is
Yeah.
gonna like those Koreans who don't have exposure to foreigners. Like they're just gonna see that one news and be like, oh, foreigners must be. And I don't blame them. That's their ignorance. But
Yeah.
but still, like
It
things
makes
like that break my heart.
everybody
Yeah.
look bad. And now, like, it even makes, like, streamers look bad. Because now Koreans will
Yeah.
see foreign streamers and be like, oh, they're probably coming to tarnish our country's name.
Yeah.
It is tarnishing Korea's name, what he was doing.
Yeah.
Which I still think it's pretty cool that Koreans stood up to themselves. I was like, yes, Koreans, get him. Like, don't let people walk all over
Yeah.
you. But I do understand that there is that mindset that one foreigner does something bad, then some Koreans will be like, oh, all foreigners do this. But still, it's like 2025. Like,
Yeah.
come on, the internet is free.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, like, I just don't understand how that club is in Itaewon.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
why open a business there if you're not okay with foreigners going into your establishment? That's
Makes
like
no
so
sense.
strange.
Maybe they just do it for like the Itaewons. Oh, we are in Itaewon, so Koreans
Could
are attracted
be.
to that.
Could be, because
Which is,
there are a lot of Koreans in Itaewon too, yeah.
Yeah. Little definition of like appropriation, right? No. Like taking, oh man.
Just-
Anyways.
And it's hip hop.
Yeah.
There should be pansori playing only in that club. Should only be hearing pansori, no pop, nothing. It's just it's so strange. But let's talk a little bit about you being Christian in
Okay.
Korea. You seem to be very, I'm assuming right now because we haven't talked about it, to be very deep in your faith, right? I know you go to Korean church. How has being in Korea changed your faith, or how has your faith been in Korea? Coming from like maybe a toxic church to like finding a good church family.
Ooh, wait. Don't put words in my mouth. Toxic church? I don't know.
Sorry.
There was elements of social, like,
Okay.
yeah, Korean, yeah, for sure. And
Maybe
there is some toxicity. I
maybe
think there's a
some
lot of,
toxicity
yeah,
there.
there's some toxicity
Yeah.
in every church, for sure. How have I grown? I don't know if it's so much like me coming to Korea in church. I do, right now I'm going to, like an English-speaking church called New Harvest. It's been great. I think I grew a lot in my faith there. My experience with churches, right? Man, I don't know. I feel like I'm offending a lot of people in this podcast right now. But
You think so?
I think. So let me preface all of this by saying, this is my experience.
Of course. Yeah.
I think that goes.
Without saying.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
goes without saying. I think Korean churches. Let me just say it. Unfiltered Korea, right? Let's go.
I got your back. Say it.
Korean churches, Korean churches tend to be very legalistic. I think a lot of them have the gospel wrong. I think they'll say they're saved by faith and like, like faith alone. But a lot of the times they subconsciously enforce like things, acts to merit God's love. And I think that's not only like misguided, I think it's like anti-Christian. Because the whole thing about Christianity is that you're not saved by what you do. Like you're like the worst sinner, right? But
We're all sinners, yeah.
God loves you more than you can imagine because because of Jesus, not because of what you've done or what you will do. But I think when you go to Korean church, you see a lot of people working really hard, like 열심히. 열심히 is like a word that's used a lot in Korean churches.
Yeah.
And I think that when that supersedes like faith, I think that creates a really unhealthy culture. So like a lot of like 새벽 기도s. I think 새벽 기도 is a good thing. You don't have a 새벽 기도s? Like people come like wake up at 4 a.m. to come to like service before starting their day.
I never knew this was a
Oh, it's a
thing.
big thing. You go to a
Yeah.
Korean church and like there are like thousands of people like lining up to get to the church 4 or 5 a.m.
Wow. Okay.
I guess a lot of foreigners might not know about this.
Yeah,
but
I've never heard about that.
It's a
Yeah.
big Korean culture thing. And
Yeah.
even Korean churches abroad have a 새벽 기도 culture where this is during the weekdays.
Yeah.
Every day.
At 4 a.m. to go pray.
Yeah. They have a
Oh,
whole service
wow.
before starting out the day. And it's beautiful. I love it. But when that gets emphasized to the point where like, oh, unless you don't do this, you're not. Or like, a lot of these things.
Yeah,
I think it becomes really unhealthy.
You hear that a lot in church.
Yeah,
If you don't do this, you don't get saved. If you don't do this,
Yeah.
you're not a good Christian. It's a lot of that.
I think a lot of Korean Christians got burned out from that. So I think that's unhealthy. But recently, I've been checking out different. So that's been my like big worry for the past 6 years I've been in Korea, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, am I ever gonna find a Korean church? Because I see myself living in Korea. I don't want to just be in an English speaking church. But I hadn't found that church. But
Right.
recently I found a church right here, actually, Bungdaedong. It's a church called 시광교회. And I was like, oh, like they actually, I think, got the gospel. I think, and so that's been really refreshing. I've been
Yeah.
checking out their church, and
Yeah.
I'm planning to move to a Korean church now.
Why do you want to join a Korean church?
For a couple of reasons, but a lot of the times when I make, I don't know, my coworkers or like the little Korean friends that I have, like the military friend, like I want to tell them about the gospel. Oh, like this is what I believe, and I want them to check out the church to see what it is.
Yeah.
But I can't bring them to an English speaking church, right?
Sure.
So that's one of the reasons. But also, I think I want to be part of this movement. I think a lot of Korean Christians are like have a misunderstanding of the gospel, and I think it'd be so freeing for them to see more of this. So being part of this Korean church, I think maybe I could be part of that movement that helps people realize, oh, this is what Christianity is really about.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of Confucianism still like imbued in Korean Christianity.
Yeah.
And I don't think they don't quite see that syncretism going on. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never. Have I been to a Korean church? No, I don't think. Oh no, I did go to a Korean church, but it was in New York. I went
Okay.
to a Korean church there, and I noticed I felt it to be very giri.
Ah,
they
right.
were-
Cliquiness in
Yeah,
Korean churches.
they were like, "Oh, come to our church." It was an invite-based thing. Like I went because I was invited.
Yeah.
I went, and then when I got there, it seemed like everybody was so separated. It's like the Koreans with the Koreans, and then the foreigners were left to themselves.
Oh, man.
And I feel like church should never feel like you're being left.
Yeah.
You know, like church is where we all come as believers
yeah,
to.
it's equals before
Yeah.
God, for sure.
But
Yeah.
it felt very like
There's
I
a lot
was
of
like,
cliquiness,
oh,
I think,
yeah.
in Korean churches. Not all Korean churches, again.
some. So
Yeah.
I never went to a Korean church after that. And even now, I don't attend church in Korea because I have that fear of going to a church and I've had so many friends go to Korean churches and be burned or be treated as less than because they're foreigners. So that's a huge fear that I have. That's why I don't go to church in Korea. But it's also very hard to find a church family in general because they have to, completely accept you as an outsider because technically I am an outsider. But I have had that hard time as a Christian in Korea, like feeling comfortable to just walk into any church.
Yeah.
Because there's that fear of not being accepted, even if, Jesus accepted everyone, God
Yeah,
accepts
yeah,
everyone.
yeah.
But yeah.
You should check out our church.
Harvest?
Or the Korean
one that's
church.
near here?
Either one, yeah. That reminded me of something, like going back to the misunderstanding one. I think there's, I'm not saying you misunderstood, but
No problem.
it just came to my mind right now. But I think a lot of misunderstandings that happen that I find unfortunate between Koreans and foreigners, a lot of the time, I think Koreans actually do want to befriend foreigners. But they are, a lot of the times, I think they're self-conscious about their English.
Actually,
And
I
so-
can see that, yeah.
That's why they don't like approach. Because like in the States, right? If you want to befriend someone, like you just go up to them and talk, or
Just
like
talk.
small talk.
Yeah.
But Koreans, one, there's no small talk, and two, like
There's
Koreans,
no even like complimenting,
yeah,
Yeah.
Koreans are really self-conscious about their English. A lot of them like speak okay English, but
Literally.
they're like so self-conscious. And I think from the foreigners' perspective, sometimes it's like, oh, like they're not friendly to me. But oftentimes, what I found is that if the foreigners approach Koreans, they'll be more than happy to like help. They'll be very welcoming. So I think there is that as well.
It's like a fear from both.
Yeah, and I find this so like 아쉬워, like 안타까워,
quite
right?
frustrating, yeah.
It's like it's so unfortunate because
Yeah.
it's like a lose-lose situation.
It is.
So I think if both did a little more to just be more,
Get connected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it could maybe create more friendships.
Maybe we just all have to let loose of our fear of being rejected.
Yeah, that's
I think
great.
Being rejected is the fear there. Like
Yeah,
trying
both
to
sides.
Yeah, trying to befriend a foreigner, trying to befriend a Korean, and then being rejected, and then having to be like, oh, okay, and then never trying again because you've already been rejected the first time.
Yeah.
I think that is definitely a fear. I think you're gonna have to come back, to be honest, in terms of like I think we can talk more in depth about everything
Yeah.
so far. I also really want to talk about, content creation and how that's been with you.
Right.
But we haven't even touched that because we've been talking about other things the whole time.
Sorry, I'll be more direct.
No,
I think I have this roundabout way of talking about things.
No, I don't like direct. I think direct doesn't give the story to people because being direct is you're only answering my question. And there's no background to it. So I actually like that, we deviate a little bit. I think it's more comfortable. It's not an interview, It's just a talk.
It's totally random.
Yeah.
But one of the qualities about my dad that I really actually dislike is that whenever I ask him a question or whatever, he goes on this like life story, right? It's like, Dad, I don't know, something as simple as, what are you doing here? And they will go like, back in 1976, I had a friend. And he'll go like 3-4 stories before, like, so why is it here? And,
and he forgets by the end of the story.
I just call myself. I'm very similar to my dad.
You're your dad's son. Yeah. And I don't know, it's nice because you get to hear a story that you probably had never heard before, though. You're just like,
he recycles the same stories. We have a list. That's story number 76. He's going on about that again. Yeah.
Just like, I've heard this one before. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. But before we end, is there anything that
are we already ending? Or is it time?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Nelson, you're going to have to come back. It's not a joke because it's already at an hour.
Okay.
Is there anything that you wanted to say that you feel like you did not get to say? I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah.
But is there anything a message that you wanted to send out?
I think the more you understand someone's history, the more you can't help but empathize with them.
Yeah.
And so I think if we could take on an attitude of curiosity rather than of judgment and like try to understand, why are they a certain way?
Yeah.
I think that could go a long way in building better relationships between foreigners and Koreans. Yeah.
You've mentioned that I think twice already.
Okay.
Yeah. And I feel like it's very true. Like maybe understanding the history a bit could help like both with the misunderstandings. I did like when you said that, it goes both ways when it comes to like,
for sure.
Koreans do want to have some Koreans do want to have foreign friends and some foreigners do want to have Korean friends, but we all just have to get rid of that fear of approaching each other because there is a fear there for sure.
Yeah.
But are you okay with us ending here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Nelson will be back, guys. I'm gonna keep bothering him until he comes back. But anyways, guys, that was it for another episode of Korea Unfiltered with Nelson. This is the most comfortable guest I've had so far in terms of seating. You were just...
Oh, really?
He was remixing in the chair. He was like, I'm gonna make myself comfortable here. Twisting and turning and everything. But guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Don't forget to give us 5 stars on any podcasting platform that we are on so we can get up in the algorithm. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye, guys!